Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to sew this beautiful dress. In my last video on this channel I drafted the pattern for the dress, so let's get into it. Alright, here is the Ankara material that I want to use for this dress, and I also have this beautiful white lace. Okay, I got this some time ago. Then I'm going to make use of this interfacing for it. I believe we call this an ST here in Nigeria. So I went ahead to cut out all the pattern pieces. I cut the Ankara fabric, I cut the lining. I used doll face as the lining. I only use this doll face here on the bodice. For the rest of the dress I use the normal lining. Then I also cut the lace, which is for the front and the back yoke. Next up I have the interfacing, which I went ahead to cut out. Then I'll iron it onto the pattern pieces. At the side seam, the allowance I added there is 1.5 inch, and then at the waist I added 0.75 inch. So for the sleeve I went ahead to cut it out. This is just a basic sleeve. I have the full length as 24 inches. Then I added an extra 1 inch to fold the wrist. I believe drafting the sleeve pattern is very simple, so let's start with the sewing. First of all, I'm going to start with the bodice. Here I'm joining all the bodies together. I'll do the same thing for the back pieces as well as the lining. Alright, now I'll move on to the yoke. I'm going to start with the back pattern, like the back yoke. So I'm taking it and I'm just going to fold in the neck. So I have these pieces that I cut out. It's about 1 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to use it and fold around this back area. Alright, so here is the back yoke and this is what it looks like. I also went ahead to do the same thing for the other side. And then for the front, I'm using the same strap to sew around the neck. So here is what it looks like and it's looking beautiful already. So let's move on to the bustier. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the boning. So do you recall that I added 0.75 inch as the seam allowance? Then on the underbust you can see I marked it. So I'm just going to measure 0.75 inch upwards from that point. So this is the position where the boning is going to be. So I'm just placing my boning here and I'm going to cut it. Now if you look, you see that I've already attached the boning to the other dart. So I'm just going to use the exact same procedure for this one. I'm just going to use a masking tape to tape around the edge just to prevent it from being sharp, but the most effective way is just to bond the edges. But since I don't have a matches or lighter around me, so I decided to make use of this method. Some of you might be wondering why I'm using boning on this dress. Is because I want that place to have structure, even though it's not a corset, but I need it to be structured. Here is the bra cup that I want to use and I'm just stitching them together. So this bra cup is like 2 sizes above my bust circumference measurement. Here is the exact position this bra cup is going to be. But before I do that, I'm going to attach the front yoke. Honestly, there used to be a time that I used to find it difficult to attach yoke to the rest of the bodice. But right now I found a way that makes it easier for me. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm cutting in 1/2 inch on this curve. Then I'll do the same thing on this lace as well. And also on the lining too. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to stitch these two together, starting from the midpoint. But before that, I'll pin them both together from the midpoint towards the armhole. This 1/2 inch opening that I created at the midpoint is going to make it very easy to stitch them both together. I'm going to stitch one side first before I move on to the other side. Here is what it looks like, and honestly it looks very neat. Now I'll just attach the lining too. So I'm going to cut that 1/2 inch opening that I made on the other two pieces on this lining. So from that same midpoint that I saw the bodice and the lace, I'm going to place this lining there as well, and then I'll pin it before I'll start stitching it. So here's what it looks like after sewing, and here is the front as well. They're both looking neat. Now it's finally time to sew in the backup. Now I'm just going to start pinning it from the midpoint, then I'll place it on my under bust on both sides of it, and then also at the over bust area. I'll pin every part of it before I'll use hand needle to tack everything all together. So here's what it looks like after pinning the back up. I will just go ahead and hand sew everything now. Alright, I finished sewing it all together, and as you can see, I sew it by the side. It's actually showing at the front, but it's not really that obvious. Then also at the top of it, I think this is very much better than I've ever done before. Then also on the under bust and at the midpoint. Next up, I'll place them right side facing each other so that I can sew all around, but I'll leave a very tiny opening so that I can turn it over. Starting from the side, I'm sewing it as 1/2 inch, and when I turn it over, I'll be left with 1 inch as seam allowance. On this side, I'm sewing it as 0.25 inch because I added 0.75 inch as seam allowance, so when I turn it over, I'll be left with 1/2 inch. So now I'm going to turn it over through this opening. So this is what it looks like, and I'm just going to cover up this opening by the side.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Now let's move on to the back pattern. I'm going to attach boning here as well. So from the waist, I'll mark 0.75 inch, which is the allowance I added at the waist. Then at the top, I'll mark 0.5. Okay, so as you can see here, I've already gone ahead to cut out my boning, and I cut 2 of it, so I'll just start sewing it in. Here is both of them with boning. Next up, I will attach the back yoke. So here is the back yoke, but before I stitch them both together, I'm going to first of all mark the point where I'll place where this yoke is supposed to be. So with the help of this pattern paper, I'm just going to mark the point where the yoke is going to be. Now I'm just sewing everything together, and on the side of it I'm sewing it at half an inch just like I did for the front, but I'm going to leave the waist open and turn it over through there.
When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing.
Right now I'm going to pin the shoulder of the front and the back together, after which I'll take it to the sewing machine to stitch them. After stitching the both shoulders together, what I'm going to do next is to attach the sleeve. Alright, here is the sleeve. I remember I added 1 inch for folding it at the wrist. Now I'll take it to the sewing machine and fold the wrist.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that
So I just finished stitching the shoulders together, so I'm going to attach the sleeve now. I went ahead to pin the sleeve to the armhole of the bodice. Now I'll start sewing them together.
signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed.
For this part I'm sewing right now, I'm going to stop at the armhole because I need to change the thread from white to black. Remember earlier on when I mentioned that I added 1.5 inch allowance at the side seam, and I went ahead to use 0.5 inch to turn over the lining and the main fabric, so I'm left with 1 inch. After changing the thread, I'm going to sew in the front and the back piece together at 1 inch seam allowance.
The other way, sun is out, but the sky is gray. What would happen if I took a chance? It's always hard.
So remember when I mentioned that I'm going to add eyelet here, so I'm just going to create an extra boning channel. So right now I'm top stitching this edge. I'll also top stitch the other side as well. Now with the pattern paper, I'm going to mark the point where the extra boning channels is going to be, as well as the channel for the eyelet. After marking the point, I'll use my ruler and draw a straight line across all the points. So now I'll start sewing in the new channels. Once I finish doing that, I'm going to mark 0.75 inch from the waist. Remember 0.75 inch is the same allowance I added there. Why I'm doing this is because I want to cut the boning I'm going to insert on those two new channels.
I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed.
For this boning I just cut, I'm just burning the edges of it just to make it smooth. Okay, so here I'm inserting it. I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. Right now, this is what it looks like, and it's actually looking very neat. Alright. Now for this part, I'm supposed to fold it over using a bias tape, but I can't find mine, so I'm just going to leave it like this. So this is what it looks like after the whole thing, and the next thing I'm going to do is to start sewing the skirt part of it.
Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance.
So here's the skirt part of this dress, and this is the back pattern. At the side seam, I added 1.5 inch allowance. Then the zipper side, at the zipper side I added 1.5 inch as well. Then at the waist I have 0.75 inch. Here is the lining for the two back piece. I'm going to sew all over it at 0.5 inch, but at the waist I'll sew it at 0.25 inches. Then I'll leave a space where I'll turn it over.
When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I like to be away my patient. Stay up, I feel so outdated. How can we look the other way? Sun is out, but the sky is gray. What would happen if I took a chance? It's always hard at first glance. I don't wanna, but I know I gotta do it. The truth is,
Now this is the front piece, and I went ahead to cut the lining for it. I'm going to place this on the lace, and I'll cut exactly this. Now here's what it looks like, and I added an extra 1 inch at the hem of this lace to hem it. I went ahead to cut the pattern for that piece of Ankara fabric that was placed at the front. So this is what mine looks like. So how I did this is that I measured 9.5 inches from my hip line downward, and then I connected the line to the other side. Mind you, my waist to hip measurement is 9 inches, so which makes this a total of 18.5 inches. So what this means is that if I measure from my waist down to where this piece ended, it's 18.5 inches. So here is what it looks like after I finished cutting it. I also folded that triangular part of it. Now I'm pinning everything together so that I can sew all around it. Then I also sew it together with the lining so that I can turn it out just like I did for the back pattern.
I knew.
So what I'm doing right now is to fold the hem of that lace. As you can see, I've finished sewing everything together and I've turned it out. Now there's something I'm supposed to do that I didn't do. I'm supposed to cut out the dart, which I didn't do, so I want to do it now. I've gone ahead to cut out the dart from the pattern paper, which is why I placed the paper on the pattern piece so that I can cut it out. So I'm marking out 1.5 inches, which is the seam allowance I added earlier. Alright, so what is left, I'm cutting it off. So remember earlier on that I stitched the lining and the fabric together at 1/2 inch so that I'll be left with 1 inch. That is exactly what I'm marking right now. I'll move on to the back pattern and I'll also cut off the dart there as well. Now this is what I have after I finished folded it in, and I went ahead to join the two back pattern pieces together, and I left a small opening at the top where I will sew in the zipper. Now I'm going to place the front pattern over the back pattern, right side facing each other, then I'll pin them together. Alright, after pinning them, I'll take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew the both sides together at 1 inch seam allowance. Now here is the result. Honestly, I can't wait to finish this dress so that I can rock it. Next up, I'm going to pin together the bodice to the skirt part. Alright, then I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew all around it. I'll join the bodice to the skirt at 1/2 inch seam allowance. After joining them, I'll just go ahead and finish up the side. Here is the result, and the next thing I'm going to do is to attach the zipper. So this is me attaching the zipper. Remember the allowance I used here at the zipper is 1 inch.
I wish I knew.
After that, let's move on to the sleeve. I have here a width of 7.5 inches, and for the length what I have is 21.5 inches, which I ended up reducing by 2 inches. Alright, on the fabric I ironed in the interfacing on the both of them, and I also went ahead to cut out the lining. The lining I used here is Dolphy, so I cut 2 of it. Next, I'm going to place the lining on top of the fabric and sew all around it at 1/2 inch and leave an opening where I'll turn it over. After doing that, here is the result, and I did the same thing for the other one as well. This sleeve actually needs structure, so what I'm going to do to achieve that is I'm going to create a 1/2 inch channel for boning. The boning is going to be on the both sides, so coming to this down part, I'm marking 1 inch. Then I'll also mark 1 inch on the other side. Now I'm going to place the boning from that first point upwards down to the second point downwards and cut the boning. So I'm just going to cut 2 of it for one of the sleeve, and I also cut another 2 for the other sleeve. After putting in the boning inside the channel, I'm going to create a casing pleat on both sides of the sleeve. Alright, so here I'm just going to use pin to hold it in place. So this is how the sleeve is going to be, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other one. Here is the both sleeve. I'll just show you the point where I'm going to attach it. So this is where I'm going to attach it by the side. Alright, I'll just take it to the sewing machine and sew it on top. If you look closely, you see I've already marked the spots where I will insert the eyelet. So on each side is going to be 5 eyelets, making it a total of 10 eyelets. Now I'll just go ahead and insert the eyelet. Now this piece I have is going to be for the modesty panel. So measuring it, I have 8.5 inches on the side, and then on the width I have 8 inches. So it's just a difference of half an inch. It's not really that much. I also went ahead to cut out the lining piece from a door face. Then I'm going to sew all around the both of them at half an inch, and I'll leave a small opening to turn it out. So this is the result I have. I actually want this modesty panel to be removable so that whenever I don't want to use it, I can remove it. So for the eyelet, I've already finished inserting it, and this is what it looks like. It's actually looking very beautiful and neat. And then for the sleeve, here is what it looks like after I've finished attaching them. So because I want this modesty panel to be removable, I'm going to mark a point here on the dress where I will insert a press button. So I'm going to use a total of 3 press buttons. Then on the modesty panel itself, I'm also going to mark 3 points there where I will also sew in the other side of the press button. So this is the button I'm talking about, alright? Now I'm marking the point on the modesty panel to match the one on the dress. So these are the spots where I'll sew in the press button on both the modesty panel and on the dress. So I'll just go ahead and do just that. Now for the strap or rope that I'm going to use, this is what I have. I already made this some time ago. Now for the neck at the back, I'm also going to sew in the press button to hold the 2 sides together. Now we've come to the end of this tutorial. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.